Welcome to my reading of Stories Moshum and Kokum Told Me by Arnold Isbister. My name is Jacqueline. I'm from the Cree Nation, Cree people, and I love this book because it's part of my history, plus it resonates with something that's inside me. So I'm going to start with The Wake of the Missionary. Who are these people, Moshum? Warren asked. Friends and relatives, most of them gone now. An uneasy silence followed. Warren's grandfather continued to gaze at the photographs one by one. Just about all of them were black and white. Warren watched his Moshum flip methodically through the tattered pictures. Sometimes Moshum would display a look of recognition or a smile, sadness. Once in a while he would grunt with a shake of the head. Warren's grandfather was not just looking at photographs. He was visiting the past as well. Moshum looked at one picture for a long time. Warren stood up, looked over Moshum's shoulder, and saw a typical family scene from years ago. Scanning each face, he saw a tall man in the background and deep scars across and around his nose. "What happened to him, Mush?" he asked, pointing to the man. "Smallpox." Moshum was serious. "Is that like chicken pox?" "Much worse. To the Munyao it was less serious. To the Nehio it brought great sickness and death. Those who did not die were left with terrible scars all over their bodies and faces." "They died?" "Oh yes, millions died, and not just from smallpox, but from the flu, whooping cough, measles, and sometimes even a cold could bring death. Our people didn't have resistance to these new diseases the explorers and missionaries brought here. When Munyao first came across the oceans, they did not realize what they brought with them, and neither did the natives. From the first meeting, the sickness spread like a fire across the dry prairie. There was no stopping it. How do you stop something you cannot see? When it was finished in one region, it found its way to another and another, you know. Moshum formed a circle with his hands, and when it had completed its journey, it came back again. This happened 3 times, and maybe now times. The sickness came to visit, and in its path, it left great sorrow and suffering. Moshum was shaking his head. "You know, Warren, back then you could go to any village, any tribe, and you would hear the crying, the grief. There was a great sadness across this land, and nobody left untouched. When the explorers and missionaries came back many years later, this time to settle, they found villages empty and the whole tribes gone. They were gone forever. When they met those who had survived, they knew from the scars that sickness had been there. Some of the settlers were good. They helped. Some didn't care. People thought differently back then, you know. Some thought we did not have souls or spirits. Then there were those who decided they were going to civilize us and save our souls. These same people, in their righteousness, brought more pain, more sadness, and more sickness as they traveled west." There was a pause as Moshum shifted his weight in the chair. "You know, before the Munyao came to the west, especially the missionaries, the people knew of them already. Their coming was prophesied in the legend told from one generation to the next. The legend says that a warrior was out alone on a plain, and when the morning started to come, he was happy for the bountiful food, the many herbs and plants, and the good health of his family. A smile came to his face as he thought of his good fortune. Still smiling, he looked at the east where the morning star was, and from which direction all good things come. Looking for the morning star, he noticed a dark spot in the sky that seemed to get bigger. On the horizon, he saw a dark figure that was moving funny and was getting closer. The warrior thought this must be how death moves when he saw how slow and unnatural its movements were. It was now close enough that he could tell it was dressed like a missionary, all in black. The stranger's face was pitted with terrible dark holes. Stopping, the stranger asked, "Awi Nakia?" "I am warrior of the plains and have many tribes," answered the warrior. "I have never heard of you," said the stranger, "or of these tribes. Who are they?" The warrior explained, "They are my people, and are like me. We roam the plains that are many days long and many days wide. He then asked the stranger, Awinakia. I am smallpox, the stranger answered. I've never heard of you. Where'd you come from? What do you do? And why are you here? Asked the warrior. I come from far away, across the great waters, replied the stranger. I am one with the white men. They are my people. Sometimes I travel ahead of them. Sometimes I lurk behind. But I am always with them in their camps and their houses, no matter where they move. What do you do? The warrior asked. I bring death and sickness, Smallpox replied. My breath causes children to wither like young plants in the spring snow. I bring destruction, sadness, and grieving. No matter how beautiful a woman is, when she has looked at me, she becomes ugly. To men I bring not death alone, but the destruction of their children and the blighting of their wives. Everyone in my path will linger in their suffering, and no people who have looked on me will ever be the same. With that, the stranger and warrior parted, and each going their own way. Our world was never the same. Moshum ended. Looking down, he said, perhaps as an afterthought, You know, Warren, I read somewhere that 100 million North and South American natives died as a result of these diseases. 100 million people in Armageddon. So today we live for ourselves and for our ancestors. And I will continue on with this book in the coming future. Thanks for listening.